Oh no, that's strange. Or maybe it's because we have our little caption down there. Welcome to our vegan live stream. Well, anyway, welcome to our vegan live stream, everyone. There we go. That was the problem. It's Mark and Stef here today from Vegan Education Adelaide, our little duo activism duo in Adelaide. And we thought we'd just make a video following up from our last one about animal welfarism. So our last video was our first video, and we started to discuss some of our thoughts around the role of animal welfarism versus kind of an abolitionist perspective. And obviously our views about this have been developed through and influenced by certain animal rights philosophers, I guess you'd call them. One of those people being Professor Gary Francione. I thought I should mention him and give credit where credit's due, because he did come up with the abolitionist approach to animal rights, and he's written extensive things about this topic, and is one of the, I suppose, pioneering animal rights philosophers in this kind of field when we're talking about abolitionism and animal welfarism. So I thought I should probably give some credit to Gary, because he's had a big influence on our views. Not that we agree with everything that Gary may say, I suppose. Just a little disclaimer: he has expressed certain views about other non-animal rights issues that I guess I can't speak for you, Mark, but at least I can say that I don't necessarily agree with. But the thing is, you've still got to judge an idea by the idea and not by the person themselves and their other beliefs. So anyway, that was a bit of a ramble, but I think we didn't really mention Gary at all in our last video. And I kind of thought afterwards, I don't want to claim that all of our ideas we just completely thought up ourselves and no one had ever, thought of them before. I think it's important to give credit where credit's due. So anyway, enough of that. So we're going to continue our discussion today about animal welfarism and the problems with animal welfarism if we're talking about an animal rights and vegan perspective. So last time we mentioned that we were writing an article with our cousin who is not a vegan but is interested in this topic. So we're writing this article and Jordan is presenting arguments that say that vegans should support animal welfarism and animal welfare campaigns. And Mark and I are writing a section that I guess is against the idea that vegans should support animal welfare campaigns. So we started talking about that last time. One of the major points we talked about last time is how the two philosophies of animal welfarism versus abolitionism, that is to abolish the property status of animals and reject all animal exploitation. That's what abolitionism is. Whereas welfarism is simply trying to just regulate animal exploitation industries. It has absolutely no interest or promotion of, ending animal exploitation. So we talked mainly last time about how the two kind of ideologies conflict and they contradict each other. So animal welfarism, it assumes it's okay to use animals. We just have to try and make it more humane. Whereas abolitionism is all about no animal use is okay. No animal use is morally justified. Treating sentient beings as property is morally wrong. So yeah, the two ideologies do conflict, and animal welfarism. The goal of animal welfarism is not to move towards abolitionism in any way. It's simply to just regulate animal use. So the point we made last time was that they counteract animal welfarism, and the campaigns around that are counterproductive to achieving abolitionism, because they, I guess, create this narrative that, firstly, there is a humane way to exploit animals, and secondly, that when they're targeting a particular practice in the animal farming industries. So the example we used was banning the battery cage. When they target that particular practice, they're implying that whatever the alternative is ethical or good or more humane. So by doing that, it's kind of just reinforcing the idea that it's okay to use animals and that there's a right way to do it. So yeah, so the two ideologies very much counteract. So we are putting forward the case that vegans should have no part in animal welfarism. We don't need it. We can focus on our abolitionist vegan activism, trying to show people that it's unnecessary to use animals, and that it's wrong. It's wrong to treat animals as just an object, a thing, human property for us to use however we like. We can focus on our vegan activism. We don't need to be putting any time or energy or resources or money into animal welfarism. That's the argument we're trying to make. Now, what we didn't really get round to, we didn't get to finish off our points last time. So we thought today we would try and just cover a couple of other things. And yeah, sorry, Mark, I know I've been talking a lot. Do you have anything to say at this point?
Oh, that was a good introduction, I suppose. I think.
I
Yeah,
just
I mean, we're
realized.
just keeping this casual, keeping this light.
Yeah, just a casual discussion. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but
I just
yeah, I
realized
think.
we're already like almost 8 minutes in, so time flies when you're
Hi, I'm
rambling.
Mark. Yeah, I think you've explained it pretty good. I was just yeah, I guess concentrating on what you were saying and trying to take it all in and understand. I think that's the current paradigm that we're in. I think we've been in this welfare paradigm for a long, long time. I suppose since philosophers and scientists, yeah, first, I guess, postulated or decided for whatever reason that animals had some kind of moral value, or at least could feel pain and they weren't just like reacting to stimuli. They were kind of separated from plants and all that kind of stuff. So I think, yeah, I think using animals has always been the paradigm, and it's just a matter of how we do that in a nice way. So yeah, I think abolition is just crossing that new threshold into we don't need to use them at all. Like that's not a necessary thing. It's unnecessary, and if it's unnecessary, then we shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So the two things I thought maybe we could focus on today that we didn't get to really delve into much last time is firstly the effect of this animal welfarism ideology on non-vegans feeling more comfortable exploiting animals and consuming animal products because they're fed this message that if they buy like free range eggs or RSPCA approved whatever or organic or whatever, if they think that it's more ethical than like factory farms, because factory farms have been, it's a bit of a buzzword, I suppose, and it's that factory farms have been like the main target of animal welfarist campaigns. And I mean, of course, factory farms are bloody horrible, but this real like emphasis that factory farming is like just so much more horrible than any other kind of factory than any other kind of farming. Like, I think it's almost like it's convinced people that, okay, if I avoid factory farmed stuff, like if I buy free range eggs or whatever, then I'm doing the right thing. And, so which is the reason they think that way, is because that's what these animal welfare organizations are saying. Like, they're telling people, like, they're not telling people go vegan, they're telling people don't buy factory farmed. So
Yes.
yeah,
So we're
it seems
talking
wrong.
about vegans. So vegans, people that think that it's wrong to use animals, making this distinction between one form of animal exploitation is better than another form of animal exploitation. Yeah, which seems
Yeah.
contrary to who they are, I suppose, as a vegan. And if they are against, I mean, we're assuming that they are against animal exploitation. We're keeping this to ethical veganism, away from plant-based or eating veggies for health. If we look at strictly ethical vegans, then yeah, to think that we shouldn't use animals, but hey, this use is worse, maybe you should do this use instead.
Yeah, it's almost a bit hypocritical. Like, well, we think it's wrong to use animals no matter how they're treated, so we're not going to. But if you're going to, well, then you should like use these free range ones. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. It's just like it's a massive contradiction. And don't
yeah.
forget, as vegans, we're not supposed to force veganism on anybody.
Ah, yes, the good old
That
force.
old
We
chestnut.
tie people down and we force broccoli into their mouths, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I
So
just say as a side note, I've been into, a free range farm, and it certainly is very far away from free range. Like if you really wanted to avoid factory farming, it would be much easier to just be vegan.
yeah,
Like
that's right.
like probably the high 90% of food is from factory farms.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, I guess the point is, while we might acknowledge that, like, I certainly agree. I agree with you. I don't think that free range farms are ethical at all. I guess, like we said last time, we can kind of acknowledge that, sure, like maybe factory farms do cause more net suffering than free range farms. But the thing is, as vegans, and we realize all animal use is wrong and does result in unnecessary harm and death, no matter where the animal comes from. We don't need to like be worrying about promoting like better farms when we can be promoting veganism. So it's like, why do we need to like? We should just be promoting veganism, like no animal use, right? We don't need to be promoting more humane animal use. We can just promote no animal use. So anyway, whilst we might agree that some farming might be less cruel than others, we don't need to promote either. We can just promote veganism. You know what I mean? So, so yeah. Anyway, so Mark and I have done a fair bit of activism on the streets over the past 8 years or so. We used to have a little table set up on a busy street, and we'd invite people to come up and chat to us about veganism. More lately, we've been just standing with signs in a different busy place where we're not allowed to have a table. So hence we just stand there with signs. And we do the same thing though. We, try and get people to come and engage with us and talk about veganism. So with that experience up our sleeve, I guess in our article, we're making the point that animal welfarism, trying to make animal use more humane, it makes non-vegans feel better about using animals if they think that it's from a source that is ethical or humane. And we see that a lot in our activism. And we see non-vegans almost like proudly stating about how they only eat beef that is organic, free range, or something like that, or they only eat eggs from their neighbor's cousin's sister's backyard or something like that. So they really have this idea ingrained to them that it's that welfarist ideology. It's okay to use animals as long as it's what they consider ethical, right? So we see this a lot in real life in non-vegans. So this is the effect that animal welfarism has. It really like makes non-vegans feel better about using animals. So that is a negative effect of animal welfarism, and it's one that we have seen many, many times in person and online, and online in our online activism. We just see it. We just see it all the time. So that's definitely a negative part of animal welfarism, negative consequence.
Yeah, it does make it a lot harder to engage with the public. I feel like there's almost a facade as well behind it. I think they use it as a shield. The conversations that I've found more successful are honest conversations with people who have said straight up front, I love meat, I eat animals all the time. And then we can kind of delve into an honest conversation. I feel like, as you said, the people that eat free range eggs from their cousins, sisters, aunts, beautiful chickens that they keep as pets. I think there's. Do you think that's genuine? Do you think that's an honest disclosure, or do you think that's a bit of a shield from? I'm sure they buy cakes from the supermarket, right? That doesn't have eggs from their cousin, sisters, chickens. Or if they only buy free range eggs, like I'm sure they go out to restaurants. I'm sure they go out to people's places. Like, how honest do you think they are coming? Like, if we give them the benefit of the doubt, like, how honest do you think they are with that?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think 99% of the time, like, yeah, they might be eating these backyard eggs, but they're also eating random other eggs that they don't know where they came from. So yeah, if they go to a party and someone's made cupcakes and like they don't know where those eggs have come from, and so yeah, I do think that they do use it as a bit of a defensive, yeah, like facade, I suppose. So yeah, that's true. So was there anything else we need to say about that point, like about how makes people more comfortable about exploiting animals?
Yeah,
You
I have a
think?
thought in my head. I'm just trying to piece it all together.
It's
Yeah, I
almost like
suppose.
it's almost like they use it as a reason not to be vegan, basically.
Yeah, I mean that's why they say it. Like they've done enough, and I think that's another group that's maybe important to touch on is people who are vegetarian. They seem to be very difficult to talk to because they've done enough. I
Yeah.
think in their mind they've made a difficult
Yeah,
choice or difficult whatever, and it's they don't feel like they want to know anything more. Like you can't even
yeah.
like they're not open to engaging with talk about the milk dairy industry, how all that works. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But remember, Mark, that the reason that they think that way is because animal welfare organizations, big welfare organizations like Animals Australia, have told them that, Animals Australia, look, I mean, they've kind of morphed a little bit, I think, over time. They're still very much welfarist, but historically they have always said, you don't have to be vegan to care about animals. You can reduce your animal use, or you can buy free range or non-factory farmed products, or you can donate to us. Like so they.
Well,
If
there is
non-vegans,
Monday. Monday's coming around. I'm looking for a recipe for Monday, and you know what's on Monday? It's Meatless Monday.
that's Monday, yep. So yeah, I think like if non-vegans believe this kind of stuff, like we almost can't blame them, because Animals Australia, the voice for animals, like is telling them that that's okay. So yeah, I just thought it's important to point that out.
Yeah, we're not here to bash on people that are misinformed or non-vegans or anything like that. I suppose we're just trying to understand how we can be an effective voice for animals. Yeah.
So now the next point to discuss, I think maybe we did touch on this last time. Oh yeah, we don't need to spend much time on this one because we've said before that welfare. So a common misconception of animal welfarism is that it's somehow like incremental steps toward abolition, but we completely disagree with that. It's definitely not like that. Is not abolition is not the aim. I don't know how many times I can say it, but abolition is not the aim of animal welfarism. They are not trying to like incrementally step towards it. At least, like that's what I can see. That's my understanding of it. All it's doing is perpetually regulating animal exploitation industries, right? It's not. It's just like going around in this circle, like changing it, reforming, but it's not actually stepping towards abolition. And they don't promote veganism as a moral baseline, so yeah. But I think we don't need to spend too much time talking about that because I think we've made that point. The next point, so one thing I guess to talk about is that overall, animal welfarism, I think, doesn't do as much for animals as people think that it does. So that's a point that we're making, that it's interesting. People need to be aware of what is below the surface with a lot of these animal welfare campaigns. We might have briefly touched on this last time, but I wanted to give an example today that I didn't get to give last time. So we recently read about the sow stalls, didn't we, Mark?
Yeah.
So that's the example I'm going to go through just to show people that, if you dig a bit below the surface, some of these animal welfare campaigns, they're not all that they're cracked up to be. So, and sometimes where people think the improvements are like so massive, they're actually not so massive. And, any welfare reform usually takes decades to implement anyway. So that's the other common misconception. It's not helping animals immediately. It's helping non-existent animals in a couple of decades, pretty much.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to work out how many generations of, let's say, chickens that would be. Potentially hundreds of generations time.
Yeah. And, not that the chickens or the animals in 2 decades don't matter, but I'm just pointing out that people think that animal welfarism helps animals now, but actually it doesn't. What does help animals now is veganism. So anyway, so the example I want to give about the sow stalls. So this is an example of a welfare campaign that was heavily, invested in by probably Animals Australia, probably other Australian animal welfare organizations. So for several years prior to 2010, animal welfare activists campaigned for piggeries to ban sow stalls. Now, sow stalls, if you're not aware, are these very, very small cages that female pigs who are used for breeding in the pig meat industry. The female pigs are kept in sows are female pigs. So the sow stalls is where the female pigs that are used for breeding are kept in. They're very small. They pretty much just give enough room for the sows to stand up and lie down. I don't even think that they can turn around. Some of the images I've seen, the cage looks too small to even turn around. So prior to 2010, there were big campaigns to ban the sow stalls. And then in 2010, the pig meat industries in Australia voluntarily committed to phasing out sow stalls by 2017. So when they announced this in 2010, of course, the animal welfare organizations were celebrating. Look what we did. This is so amazing. Thank you for donating to us. Thank you for helping pigs. They thanked their donors profusely, and they used it as promotional material to show how great they are. So the thing that they didn't tell people was that there were some caveats. The welfare organizations, because it was a voluntary commitment, the industry got to make their own rules. There were no actual, it wasn't being regulated, it wasn't being enforced, and they got to make their own rules pretty much. So what actually happened was that the sow stalls were not removed completely. They were not phased out. Like, to me, phased out sounds like they're going to be gone completely, but that's not what happened. What the industry actually agreed to doing voluntarily is that they would keep the female pigs in the sow stalls during the breeding and mating kind of period, and then up to 5 days after they were last mated. And then they would move them into loose housing. And then a week before giving birth, then they would move the female pigs into farrowing crates, which, to me, from what I could see in the images, they looked quite similar to the sow stalls, but instead, like they're small cages, but instead it's given a different name, farrowing crate. It's for birthing the pigs. So they were not phased out completely, and the industry never agreed to actually get rid of them completely. They only said that they would, move the pigs into loose housing from the sow stalls after the mating period. Anyway, but then, post 2017, when this phase out was meant to be done by, some investigations into the piggeries revealed that actually most piggeries in Australia were not even adhering to their own voluntary commitment, So the investigation found that the female pigs, they were being kept in these sow stalls for much longer than 5 days post-mating. They could be in there for a month, a couple months. And so, yeah, that was pretty much the result. So I guess, although the industries did make some changes, it certainly wasn't what people, probably thought it would be. And yeah, it's 2024, the original, voluntary commitment that the pig meat industry made was in 2010. Now it's 2024 and the sow stalls are still being used, So I guess that's just an example of how these animal welfare campaigns don't always do as much for animals as people think, and the steps that they take are very, very, very small. So what do you have to say about that, Mark?
Yeah, it's an interesting case study, and I think I don't know a lot of people that would know that information. I think we have short-term memory loss, I think, as a vegan movement. I think if we were to reflect on a lot of the welfare changes that have been made and a lot of the time and energy and particularly money spent, whether that was effective, whether things went backwards, whether things were reversed, whether things turned out as expected. As you said, it was voluntary. There's no one to hold them accountable. Yeah, it would be interesting to look back at past welfare campaigns.
Yeah.
And I really don't think we are any further along. And as you said, I don't think we're closer to abolition. I don't think that was leading to abolition.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's an industry, right? It's a pig industry. So there's no the people that are putting the welfare regulations in place are the pig industry. So unless they're trying to phase their own industry out, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and that's the other point as well, isn't it? That often, so animal welfare organizations, they'll pick the low hanging fruit. They'll sometimes target things that they think are an easy win, and often, if it's an easy win, it's because it's something that the industry was thinking of doing anyway, or something that's gonna benefit the industry, so they can convince them to make the change, or so I guess an example of that was the live export campaign. Do you want to talk about that one? Do you know what I'm talking about with the?
I probably don't have as much information just off the top of my head for live export, but maybe the recent one in the public eye, not in Australia but overseas, but led by an Australian, is championing I can't remember, as a slaughterhouse, I think, was closed. And it was closed very shortly after an activist released footage. And there was a lot of celebration over that. But looking a little bit deeper, it's not quite clear whether that slaughterhouse was already closing for various reasons. So it's almost like, activists are taking advantage of industry changing by itself and then jumping on that bandwagon, claiming a victory for that. And I suppose they get money out of it, don't they? I'm not sure. Yeah,
that's where our skeptical brains kind of come in. Like whenever money's involved, it's like there's always a little bit of, you've got to question things a bit, I think, because I think wherever there's money involved, people tend to maybe lose sight of clear judgment a little bit, and maybe are tempted to do certain things that are gonna, increase their donations, that might not always be what is really in the best interests of animals. And I think especially, like we mentioned, I think in the last video with donations, is that the vast majority of the world is still non-vegan, right? So if you're looking for donations, you want to cast your net wide and try and, appeal to everybody, including non-vegans, to try and get their support and their donations too. So I think that's what really is a big part of animal welfarism, is, thinking, okay, how can we get, we're not going to make much money if it's only vegans donating to us, right? So how can we get non-vegans to donate to us too? Oh, perfect answer. Let's not tell them to be vegan. Let's not, push veganism at all. Let's just, feed off of the fact that we know that they do care about animals a little bit, but we're going to just keep them happy by telling them a message that, oh, you don't actually have to change what you're doing at all. You just have to, get the industries to try and change, or the government to do something. You don't have to change. Make other people do it. Sign this petition, donate to us, and we'll make it happen, So we touched on that a bit last time, but wherever there's money involved.
Yeah, I remember maybe 2 years into our activism, we spoke to a lady that had a tote bag from one of the big welfare organizations, and I think we both just assumed that she was vegan, and we just started to, do you remember this? I don't know if you remember this, but we just started talking to her as if she was vegan, and she was very happy for us to be out there talking to people. She was like, good on you guys, like, you're doing great. And then I think we must have just asked, casually, like, oh, like, how long have you been vegan? What's your story? And she was like, oh, no, I'm not vegan. And she just switched off completely. She didn't want to have a bar of it. She didn't want any conversation. So I think she would be the perfect candidate for those welfare campaigns, right? She wants to keep her behaviors the same and donate to an organization that will take care of it for her.
Yeah. I do remember that. I wouldn't have remembered it unless you brought it up. And now that you bring it up, I do remember that lady. And honestly, that's probably happened a couple of times to us anyway. It's probably happened more often than we think. But yeah, it's so true. And just speaks to the fact that most of the donors and supporters of these animal welfare organizations are non-vegans. And if that doesn't raise a red flag,
What will?
I don't know what does. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Another red flag would be, industries voluntarily changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a bit of a red flag. Why would they do that? Unless it was going to benefit them in some way.
Yeah.
Why would they do that? It's not because they care about animals. Yeah. All right. Okay, let's have a look at if there's anything else in this article that we could talk about. You know what? I think that's most of the main points covered, to be honest. Do you have anything?
We have nothing else to say on this? I feel like we have a lot to
We're
say.
speechless. For once, we're speechless.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, I guess we did do an hour video the other day about it.
That's true. We did.
But yeah.
I think to bring it back into the real world, and I think this is one of our points, is we only have limited time and energy available to us. And if we're not using it to educate people about these issues, then what are we using it for? Like, if we're just using it to reinforce that it's okay to use animals, we just need to do X, Y, Z. I think that's a very inefficient way of using our energy. Do you think that a lot of people are they just feel disempowered to be an activist, or not confident enough to talk to people in a strong, direct, uncompromising way?
Yeah, I think it can be daunting for people to. I think there's a few. This could probably be another video in itself, though. Like, why aren't more vegans activists? You know, that could be another video in itself. But yeah, I think you're right. I think maybe people do see these kind of more famous vegans that take to the streets and do their activism, and maybe they, see them and think, why, do I have to be like them to be able to do it? Or I could never, I'm not as articulate as them, or I'd
love to talk about that. Maybe on Friday when we do our pre-shift for activism, we can talk about that. I suppose I meant it more in terms of it's easier to compromise your message to come across a bit softer. Maybe people aren't confident enough to have that uncompromising message, even when they talk to people that they know. If it's maybe they don't understand abolition, maybe they don't understand the mechanisms. I guess that's why we're having this conversation, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah. I think people would be maybe more confident if they understood like abolitionism a bit more, and like because it gives you such a strong rationale for veganism, really, and they go hand in hand. And so yeah, maybe if people kind of understood that more. But I just thought of something else that we could touch on that's under the theme of welfarism. Farm Transparency Project. And they've got this, they're kind of teeing up, like, I don't know how it really works, but I've noticed that Animals Australia, Farm Transparency Project, and Animal Justice Party are all kind of promoting this ban gassing pigs for pork campaign, or ban gas chambers campaign, and what they're talking about is the banning the use of CO2 gas as a stunning method. So the pigs are gassed with CO2 to stun them before they're slaughtered. So yeah, those three are the main organizations that I've seen promoting this campaign. But it seems to be led kind of by Farm Transparency Project, or at least it's their footage that, and they've kind of got this whole campaign around it. So it seems to be led by them. But again, it's a welfarist campaign. Farm Transparency Project is one of those organizations that claim to be vegan. You know, they say that they're vegan. Well, do they even use the word vegan though on their website?
I feel like they do. Yeah.
They say that they're on their website somewhere.
While you talk, I will Google.
Yeah, good. On their website somewhere, in a footnote somewhere, in fine print somewhere, they say that they're against all animal use, and they don't think that any animal use is humane, and so they're kind of like trying to give a nod to like abolitionism. But then the majority of the stuff that they seem to do is welfarist by the looks of it. And, they go out, the Farm Transparency, like, I guess part of their purpose is going out into farms, getting footage and trying to show the public that. But it seems like almost what they're doing is using it to push more of a welfarist agenda, where they're like, instead of taking this footage and be like, look how horrible animals, are treated in Australia, and look how horrible animal farming is. This is standard practice, blah, blah, blah. Instead of, showing that footage and saying, I guess, accompanying that with, you know what the solution is? Go vegan. If you're against all of this stuff that's happening in Australian farms, the solution is to go vegan. Don't stop contributing to it, people. Go vegan. That's what they should be doing, I think, really. But instead, they're sucked into this welfarist kind of narrative, and I have to assume that it's because they also want the support of non-vegans and the donations from non-vegans, and that, like, they're an organization, they take donations, they have merch and all that kind of stuff. So but yeah, so they do this, like, they expose, that's the word, they expose what's going on in farms. But then what they do with that is they say, oh, you know what the solution is? Sign this, send a submission to the Victorian government asking them to, ban the use of gas chambers. It's like, okay, so what's the alternative then? So you're wanting to ban gas chambers, which means you're wanting some other alternative to be put in place, right? Because you're not telling people to go vegan. So what's going to happen? The gas chambers are going to be banned. Some alternative is going to be put in place. Like, that's what you're advocating for. And like we said last time, like, that's just not a vegan message. So they say on their website that they're vegan. They try to kind of like almost give an homage to abolitionism, but then they're not following through with that in practice, and they're pushing more of a welfarist agenda in practice. So it's very confusing. I'd almost rather they be completely welfarist or completely abolitionist. Like, it's very confusing when they try and do both. And I think that's what Gary Francione refers to as new welfarism, where, they claim to be vegan, they claim to be abolitionist, but then what they're actually doing is very much welfarist. I think that's what it's called, new welfarism. But it's very confusing. It's a very confusing message, and I'm very confused about why they do it, unless it's about money. If it's about money, and if they can just admit that it's about money, then I'll be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I get now why they're doing it. They're trying to please non-vegans so that they can make more money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I'm half listening and half looking at the website, and I know I've seen the word vegan on there.
Have you been looking for the word vegan this whole time and you haven't found it?
Yeah, I know it's on there, I promise, but like it's not easy to find.
Doesn't that say
Um,
something though? You have to really search for the word vegan on Farm Transparency Project. Like that just says it all, I think.
yeah, I mean I mean, I think what they do in principle is probably okay. Like getting footage of what's happening and as an educational resource. Like I think more information is always better than less information. So if someone doesn't know about how we use animals for food, like they're quite ignorant. I think videos, pictures, that's all can be used as an educational resource. I suppose I don't have anything against that. I think their end game potentially though is, as far as I know from their website, is to have CCTV foot like cameras in slaughterhouses and things like that. So I'm not sure what that end game is. That end game sounds to me like welfare. It's we want camera, like we want to see all this stuff and then catch the people who are doing it illegally.
Yeah.
Like
Which is
we all
regulation. It's
do we
just
not
regulating the
yeah, do we
current
not
laws.
already have enough footage? Like they've got like they've got koalas, pigs, rabbits, rodeos, greyhound racing, circuses, zoos, leather, fur, crocodiles, wool, cosmetic testing, like dingoes, reptiles, cats, dogs, fish, mice, sheep. Like, what else do they need? Is my
Mm,
question. Like, if you have all of that information already, unless it's changing, but I don't think it's changing.
mm,
Like, they're just going to be another, like, they're regulating the industry for the industry. Like, they're kind of doing the
yeah.
industry a service almost. Like, if you
Yeah.
start squinting too much, like, so a third party is going into slaughterhouses, videoing, then they're calling out people that are doing things that are illegal, and then petitioning the government to have them get in trouble. That like, so they're an industry regulator? Like that seems odd to me.
Yeah. You're
I
exactly
might not
right.
be explaining that correctly, but
Yeah, it does seem like yeah, like I said, that they're more concerned with just regulating the industries, which is a completely welfarist thing to do. So,
yeah,
yeah, it just kind of bugs me when welfarists claim to be abolitionists. It's like,
yeah,
make up your mind. Like, are you against animal use? And if so, what are you doing to try and end it?
mm,
Or if you're not against animal use, sure, makes sense that you just care about regulating it, but just be honest about it and just align yourself, mate.
can we like give them the benefit of the doubt? Let's assume that everything they hope for comes to fruition with this banned gas chambers campaign. What do you think the outcome's going to be?
That they ban gas chambers.
Yeah, like what do you think is going to come from that?
So they're trying to. Well, so it's firstly, it's only in Victoria, so they're trying to ban gas chambers in Victoria. So I suppose with this particular campaign, if everything that they hope for comes to fruition, then gas chambers, the stunning method of gassing pigs will be banned in Victoria, and instead pigs will be stunned in a different way. I'm not sure what's the second most efficient industry way of stunning pigs, but I'm assuming that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, I don't know.
So no changes. There will be no changes to the demand for pig meat, unless it could be possible. I'll entertain the idea that as a result of this ban gas chambers campaign, some people might see the campaign material, they might see the footage, and they might decide that they want to either stop eating just pigs or stop eating meat or be vegan. But if that were to happen, then like I would almost find it a bit of a stretch to say that it was because of like farm transparency, because they would have had to, like, because farm transparency weren't actually telling them to do that. You know what I mean? So it's like if someone saw the footage and they saw this campaign, right? And they thought that's so horrible that pigs are being gassed to be stunned, to be slaughtered. And they decide to go vegan, like they must have heard about veganism somewhere else, or they must have already been kind of primed by vegan activists to make that decision. And I don't think
Yeah, I see what you
it's
mean.
really, like, I don't think it's really Farm Transparency's doing as such. Maybe, yeah, releasing the footage can help people to like just make that connection, but that's not what Farm Transparency are actually promoting. But yeah, so to answer your question, I think maybe they hope that some people will see that footage and stuff and they'll just decide to stop eating meat or be vegan or something. I don't know. But really, all that they're asking for is that gas chambers are banned in Victoria. So I suppose that's what they're really trying to achieve. So then the pigs will be stunned in a different way.
Yeah, I suppose I don't want to be too hard on them in terms of like I think their hearts are in the right place, and I think they are trying to do what they think is going to bring about change for animals. I think we're just trying to critique.
I want to believe that. I want to believe that so
Half of this
badly.
panel
And
believes that.
I kind of
Um,
believe on a surface level. Like, I think, I did hear Christoph Force speak at the vegan festival. Although, honestly, the whole 15-minute speech was just a little bit of a boast almost about like what he's done for animals through farm transparency. Like, he was basically just telling them about what like he was basically promoting farm transparency. So he's promoting what they do, things that they've achieved. Like, it was almost a bit of a like promotional speech and like a boasting kind of speech. So, fine, whatever. But like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess, like, I do think that they care about animals. It's just maybe do they care more about pushing their own agenda and trying to, like, they're growing their organization and getting donations. I don't know. I don't know. And they've maybe convinced themselves that they can do both, that they can appeal to non-vegans, get donations from non-vegans, and also care about animals and be helping animals. Like, maybe they think that they can just do both. But the way that I see it is you're compromising the animals for the other, you're compromising one for the other. So I want to believe it. I want to believe it so badly that they really do care about animals. And I think that they do. Yeah. I wouldn't make the claim that they don't care about animals. Maybe they're just a little bit, they're being a little bit willfully blinded by their own agenda, or, I don't know. What do you think?
yeah, I'm not sure. I think, yeah, it's difficult. I guess just if I was to come into footage and images the way that I think that it would be the most like useful tool is to be like, this is what's happening. The alternative is you not contributing to it. And I think keeping that message simple like that, I feel would be more helpful, and I think would be more effective. I think it would make more sense. It'd be more palatable. I think that it wouldn't contradict other things that they are saying. Because like in their, on their website and their core values, it's to not use animals. Like that's what I can read it out if you like.
I think, yeah, you can read out some of it if you want.
Mission statement: believe in the rights of non-human animals to not be exploited, owned, abused, or killed. So if they're saying that pigs shouldn't be killed for human purposes, that to me is like they have the footage of pigs being killed for unnecessary reasons. They believe, like, in one hand, and then they believe that they shouldn't be killed in the other hand. But they're not saying that to the public. Does that make sense? They're saying something completely different.
Yeah,
That
that's
just
what.
confuses me, and I don't know why. I would like to understand why. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what we're saying, right? They say one thing on their website that, who knows who reads that, I suppose. But then they're campaigning for purely welfarist stuff, and yeah, if they, and that's the thing as well, by making out the gassing of pigs to be just so horrible, and which of course it is, but they want it to be banned and something else to replace it. So when, let's just say, the gas chambers do get banned, then consumers, non-vegans, they're going to be like, oh, okay, well, now that I'm buying gas-free pork, if that's what you'd call it, gas-free pork, that's ethical. Gas-free pork is completely ethical and humane, because that's what that's what the animal activists like Farm Transparency are telling us, right?
Yeah,
They want this to be banned.
whatever comes next,
Yeah.
whether it's drowning, electrocution, whether it's like slit in their throats, whatever
Yeah.
comes next is going to be more humane than the gassing. Like,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
is
And that's the
inevitable.
message. That's the
Yeah.
implicit message that they're really getting across. But then, of course, I don't think that Farm Transparency actually thinks that whatever the alternative is
No.
going to be humane. But that's still the message that people are getting from this whole campaign. So, but then what are they going to do next? Okay. Oh, we banned gas chambers. Yay. Let's just say electrocution is next. Okay. Now we've got to ban electrocution.
Well, no,
Okay.
I guess they have
What's
to.
the
Oh, now I'm being the pessimist. Now they have to raise money to go into more farms to get more footage of electrocution now
Yes.
to prove that that's horrendous.
Like,
And
where does
then
it end? Are you
and
just,
then we're on that cycle, that
and
never-ending
that's
cycle.
and I think that's another like demonstration of how welfarism doesn't step towards abolitionism, because it never ends. Like, okay, you're banning this stunning method. Okay, there's going to be another one. Are you going to try and ban that too? Okay, you ban that one. Okay, now there's this other stunning. Like, as long as there's a demand for the products, that welfarism is endless, right? We need, the only way to really, if you really care about animals, the only way to overcome it is to be vegan, educate people about veganism, promote veganism as a moral baseline, and not just to regulate. So the way that they're going, like, we'll never have a vegan world. Like, if you're just going to aim to regulate the industries and reform the industries, you're not doing anything to address consumer demand. And it's like you're chasing your tail.
Yeah, I feel that's an issue, and I think, to be the optimist, or to give them the benefit of the doubt, I think because that's how it's always been done, right? That's how welfarism has always been done. Like,
And
nobody's
why?
really.
Because that's maybe the most effective business model. All comes back down to that.
Yeah, I think that's why Gary Francione advocates for grassroots organizations. I think because I think he understands that, yeah, money and business compromises ethical message, maybe.
Yeah.
So anybody watching this, don't send us any money, please. We do not want to be compromised. Do not be our secret donor.
Yeah, that's what we work for, right? Like, we work to earn money. We don't just want people to donate it to us. We work to earn money, and whatever money we can spare, we might put some of it into activism. But yeah, and that also goes to the fact that activism doesn't have to be that expensive. Depends what kind you want to do, but it doesn't take too much to just print out a couple of signs and head out into the streets. Like, it doesn't have to be expensive. I guess I think that's the thing. Like, maybe the big organizations, they want to create more reach. So, of course, you're not going to get nearly as much reach if you're just heading out to the streets to just talk to people. But at the very least, at least doing that, your message is clearer and you're educating people about veganism, which is what the organizations aren't really doing. So
yeah, at what point do you have enough reach to finally say the V word?
yeah, that's what I wonder. At what point will farm transparency actually drop the V word?
Watch this space.
Yeah, well, we shall see.
Can we promote Saturday morning?
Yes. Okay. So if anyone happens to watch this whole video right until the end, up until this point,
We should have said this at the start.
we will be doing another live on Saturday morning, and hopefully every Saturday morning after that as well. 9 a.m. Adelaide time. I don't know what time that is in like global like time zones, but 9 a.m. Adelaide time. So yeah,
It'll be a bit of a pump up, hype up, having a look at it before we go and do activism. We don't just want to talk about it and critique everybody, but we want to take what we've learned and actually do something about it. And if you want to get involved, get in touch.
yes. All right. Bye bye for now.